All right. Ready, guys?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Call to order the Maplewood City Council meeting Monday, November 14th, 2022. Stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. City Clerk Sint, would you do roll call, please?
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Knutson.
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
And Acting Mayor Cave.
Here. Okay, approval of agenda. Do we have approval of agenda tonight?
I move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to approve the agenda?
For more, if there's
Oh.
more discussion.
Are there any additions to the agenda?
I would like to make a presentation.
Okay. Under council presentations, Councilmember Knutson.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
still here.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that moves. Let's do the approval of minutes. We have the October 24th, 2022 City Council Workshop meeting minutes.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion that passes. Approval of minutes, October 24th, 2022, the City Council meeting minutes.
I move approval.
Okay,
Second.
Kathy approved. Bill seconded. Do we have any other questions? Are there any? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, now we're going to move on to appointments and presentations. Administrative presentation, and that's City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Acting Manager, Mayor, sorry.
All of them.
She's everything.
Multiple choice.
Acting Mayor Cave. The council calendar update is meant to just give you a preview of what's coming up on our next agendas. On November 28th, we had an EDA meeting scheduled to review the Reuter-Walton TIF term sheet at 5:30 p.m. Because of moving the final decisions on that to the December 12th meeting, I'm suggesting that we do the TIF term sheet EDA meeting at the conclusion of our regular council meeting on December 12th. So that there'll be more for the people in the audience on that in just a few minutes. On the 28th, we will have a workshop at 6 p.m. to begin our discussion about the Purple Line engagement process. And at the City Council meeting on the 28th, we will hear from our rental housing coordinator, the annual program update. On December 12th, we will have the council approval of the 2023 budget. Items we're working on is the catalytic converter ordinance, which was directed to us on October 10th. I just received a email from Public Safety Director Beardeman that is in process. We're going to have our prosecuting attorney also look at that in addition to Mr. Beatty. And once we get some comments back, we should be able to put that forward for your review. And with that, I don't have anything else other than now that we will have a new council member coming in early next year, we will update our Maplewood Living schedule, and we'll do that at the end of the year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any concerns that you'd like me to address.
Does anyone have anything? Anything to address?
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, council presentations. We have Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. A couple weeks ago, Mayor Abrams and I had an opportunity to do a ribbon cutting at St. John's Hospital. And as I probably said many times over, it's where I started my healthcare career. It was really fun because we were dedicating their new cardiac center, which includes many, many suites for doing stents and angiography, and now including open heart surgery. So it was about 1981, first acquired the land. It was a gravel pit. There was nothing where Legacy is other than an old farm. We had 25 acres of land in White Bear that was supposed to be the hospital. We discovered that Beam Avenue was so well designed and built that we moved our location. At that time, we had a group of planners, architects, and developers, and we had a 21-acre campus, and we put everything in little boxes, trying to decide what it might be in the future. The building was built so it could expand, in both outside, inside, up, down, whatever. And in the mid-'90s, when I did the birthing center, I decided to add strength to the columns to make sure they could build above. I had no idea what exactly would go there. I hoped it was cardiology. So it was just very rewarding to be at the ribbon cutting and tell a lot of people standing around the old stories of how it started. And I guess what was important is that we had kind of a vision, but not really for sure. We weren't sure exactly what would go there, what the campus might be, and it's 40 years ago. It took that long, and it's a wandering path, but ultimately very successful. And I think we in Maplewood ought to be very proud to have that hospital, because I can assure you that White Bear was disappointed, and Roseville wanted it really bad. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We thank you for coming here, Bill.
Yes. Okay, next we have a resolution of appreciation for Ann Paltzer, Environmental and Natural Resources Commission. Is Ann here?
There she is. She's walking in the door.
Oh,
Come on up. Come on up.
Perfect timing. While she's getting settled, my name is Rebecca Bryan. I'm currently the acting chair of the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, and it is actually through Ann Palzer that I got involved with the commission. So I have a personal thanks of her guidance, and that helped brought me here. But also during her term, 11-year term as a volunteer commissioner with the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, Ms. Palzer has helped guide important environmental policies and ordinances in the city. And I have a few of those that I'll just read off here. She was involved with Living Streets policy, renewable energy ordinances, implementation of the Maplewod trash plan, solid waste ordinances, tree ordinances, and many, many, many more lots to list off here. So she has been serving on the commission, like I said, for 11 years, starting in October of 2011 and resigning just this past September. So we owe within the city, she has been a very steady presence, and so her voice will be greatly missed on the volunteer commission.
thank you.
Kathy wants to read it.
Do you want to read it? Do you want this one? Okay. Okay, we have a resolution of appreciation for Ann.
Even though I don't think we should let her quit, I'll be appropriate and read this. Whereas Ann Palzer has been a member of the Maplewood Environmental and Natural Resources Commission for 11 years and 1 month, serving from August 25th, 2011 to September 30th, 2022, Ms. Palzer has served faithfully in these capacities. And whereas during her term on the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, Ms. Palzer helped guide many important city environmental ordinances and policies, including living streets, renewable energy, implementation of the Maplewood trash plan, solid waste ordinance, tree ordinance, Maplewood trash and recycling requests for proposals, Mississippi River Corridor critical area ordinance, urban agriculture ordinance, stormwater management ordinance, 2040 comp plan, Maplewood Nature Center master plan, climate adaptation plan, and implementation strategies. You should be really tired, Ann. And whereas the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission and the City Council have appreciated her experience, insights, and good judgment, and whereas Ms. Palzer has shown dedication to her duties, has freely given of her time and energy without compensation, isn't that the truth? for the betterment of our city, and whereas she has shown dedication to her duties and has consistently contributed her leadership and efforts for the benefit of the city, now therefore it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood and its citizens that Ann Palzer is hereby extended our gratitude and appreciation for her dedicated service. Passed by the Maplewood City Council on November 14th, 2022. And I want to personally thank Ann for 11 years. It's a long time on any commission. And she is a very steadying force, and she doesn't get to be gone for long. I would like to move this resolution of appreciation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
You can say a couple words if you want to. Go ahead.
That was a very long list as you read it, but, I was kind of thinking about 11 years on the commission. I have my son with me here tonight. He was 2 when I started, and now we're wrapping up middle school years. And so just was finding that my time was pretty torn and divided, and my schedule was really full with work and parenting and all those other things that go on. So I figured it was time to step down, but kind of leave the door open for the future. I really did enjoy my time on the commission. I feel like I learned a lot about the community, and I think that that's really important, to be connected to where you live and work and all that good stuff. So lots of interesting things that I got to be a part of during my time on the commission, and I appreciated the time. And we have an outstanding staff member that's our liaison to the commission. So know that I learned a ton from her and my fellow commissioners during our time here, and with Councilmember Juniman as our liaison to the council too. It was nice to be connected in that way. So
Thank you,
you
Ann.
for appointing me years and years ago, and thank you for the appreciation as well.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, council, we have the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for consent agenda items 1G1 through 7. Do we have anything that we want to pull?
I would like to highlight numbers 4 and 5, please.
Okay. 4 and 5. Bill, did you have anything?
No,
Okay.
I'd agree with.
Okay, so we're going to pull 4 and 5. So Chief Beardeman, number 4, can you give us a highlight, please?
Certainly. Number 4 is grant funded towards zero deaths. It's $43,572. They'll go to the department. This includes special details above and beyond what the patrol unit is already currently doing. It goes to public safety traffic stops. So this isn't the headlight out type of deal or expired tabs. This is for speeders, DWI, distracted driving, really those things that create, a menace and a danger to drivers on the roadway. So this is a grant-funded program. Again, $43,000 would go towards extra shifts, which will help keep the streets of Maplewood a little more safe.
Thank you.
I think it's important that we recognize that staff looks for and applies for grants, and that they're for important things like that. So, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy, you also wanted to highlight number 5, a resolution to accept donations for the Youth Scholarship Fund.
That's Audra, I think.
And Audra?
Mayor, members of the council, one thing we try to do is always look for ways to put money into the Youth Scholarship Fund, and a little background on that. If any Maplewood resident applies for a youth scholarship, we pay 2/3 of the cost of a program, whether it's offered by us or the Y or Community Ed, and then they only pay 1/3. So it's still really important to have that scholarship money. And these are a couple of ways that we did it. We had McMart ice cream truck at our special events this summer. They sold ice cream and they gave us 10%, 10% of the proceeds from what they made. And then Raising Cane's had a couple of nights where they had you come in and they donated a portion of the proceeds to the scholarship fund. So it was a really great way to get money into the scholarship fund.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just think it's good for people to realize that we do have businesses that do contribute to this because it's important for all kids to be able to participate.
Yeah, and to date, this year, we've given out almost $1,000 in scholarship funds to participants, so it's
Neat.
great stuff.
Yeah, that is great. And like you said, Kathy, I think it's really important that our local businesses are doing this. And we shout out to them to go in there and stop and see our local businesses that are helping out.
I apologize, Mayor, I also wanted to pull 7.
Oh, we can do that.
Sorry.
Okay. And 7 is, we're going to do a highlight on 7.
Do you have a question?
So, Mr. Martin?
I do have a question.
You do? Okay. So no highlight, a question, Kathy?
No, he can highlight it if he wants to.
Okay.
Sure, Mayor and Council. So the annual review is, for the Menards reconstruction project is before you. This was also before you 6 months ago in the spring, and it was asked that we bring it to tonight's meeting. So the construction project is moving along. I know at the start of this spring, there was some issues with how the trees and how many trees and what trees were taken down. And our environmental staff worked with the developer to find a pathway forward. And so that puts us to tonight, where again, staff is on the construction side. The building shell is wrapping up so they can move into winter construction on the inside of the store. So I know if Councilmember Juniman has a specific question, I'd be happy to entertain that at this time.
Kathy?
Yes, thank you. The little landscape plan that's on the back of packet, page 84, and I do mean little, with a magnifying glass. But I did talk to our environmental planner today, and I asked if she would be willing to go over it one last time, because as I deciphered the legend, there are some species that I'm not sure play well in that particular venue, and so she agreed that it probably should be looked at again as we get closer. And part of my reason for questioning it, I may as well be honest, is I don't trust Menards any farther than I can throw them when it comes to landscaping and trees. So we're going to have the staff do the final stamp, and they may be questioning some of the sites for the specific things, and then they can just work it out with Menards. But I'd like them to see it.
So, Mayor and Council, so before a grading permit is issued, environmental staff does review the landscaping plans, and so that's why that permit was ultimately issued based on that plan. We do follow through on inspections. The city holds a sizable cash escrow that we can use to enforce any inconsistencies with the developer if we find that to be the case. So more than happy to work with environmental staff to take another look at that plan, but know that we do have some safeguards, both the CUP review that's with you tonight
Right.
and the cash escrow to ensure that it's done right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion passes. Tonight, we have a public hearing, and City Manager Coleman, if you'd like to run through the...
Sure. Thank you, Acting Mayor Cave. Tonight, we have a public hearing scheduled for the Reuter-Walton project in Gladstone. And we're going to vary a little bit from our process. We are going to have the public hearing this evening. It will be on the vacation easement request. That requires the public hearing, and we are going to hold that. But because Mayor Abrams is not able to be with us tonight, I talked with each of the council members, and they feel that it's really important that all 5 members be present when this project is voted on. And we won't have 5 people at the DS again until December 12th. So we're going to hear public testimony this evening. I'm going to recommend that all of the 5 items that are looking for action from the council be tabled after we close the public hearing to address and make the decisions at the December 12th City Council meeting. So with that, Mayor, I will have Mr. Martin give the background report here for you, and then we can start the public hearing.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor and Council. If I could have the slideshow, I have a handful of slides here to walk us through our discussion. So again, what's before you tonight is a proposed 150-unit apartment building located at the properties addressed as 1136 and 1160 Frost Avenue, 5-acre project site. The applicant is requesting city council approval of a public vacation. That's why the public hearing is being held tonight. The comprehensive plan amendment and conditional use permit, public hearing was held with the Planning Commission in September. And then design review was reviewed by the Community Design Review Board also in September. So all 4 items do need council approval to move forward. Before we dig into the project itself, I kind of wanted to take a step back to talk about how we got here today. And that really does start with the adoption of the Gladstone Neighborhood Redevelopment Plan that occurred in the spring of 2007. Those properties then that were studied in that master plan were rezoned by the city in 2010. And that's what we carried through in working with redevelopment. Density for the mixed-use properties was increased in 2019, so there has been some adjustments, some changes as we've moved forward. The first significant redevelopment project, the Shores at Lake Phalen, that was approved in 2010 and opened in 2012. Directly to the south of that site, there is a vacant piece of property, which the council might remember was approved for last year for senior owner-occupied condominiums. That project is slated to break ground this spring next year. Second redevelopment project, the former Maplewood Bowl site, is the Frost English Village, again approved in 2015. That phase 1, which is a multifamily mixed income project, opened in 2016, and phase 2, which is a market rate apartment for senior rentals, opened in 2018. So you can see between the condominiums that are slated to break ground next year and the 2 senior projects already constructed, we have a range of housing options for retirees through senior that need the continuum of care. So the project that is before you tonight is different than what we've considered in the past that's either been constructed or proposed, just as context. Also wanted to point to the 3 properties that the city currently owns in this neighborhood. All 3 of these properties came into ownership of the city due to opportunity. Essentially, the current owners put them on the market. The city reacted to it. Why the city reacted in each of these 3 cases is really out of a concern of an interim use, a different user buying the property and setting up shop for a use that would not further the Gladstone redevelopment plan. So the city wanted to make sure it was driving the bus on these 3 sites to ensure its vision was being carried through. So the site on the westernmost part of this map is part of the project site that we're looking at tonight. The one on the furthest east side is a project that the city has been working with Beacon Interfaith Housing on a 40-unit building. And then in the center of the site is the former Maplewood Moose property that the city is owning and is currently does not have a proposed project, but we are looking to issue a request for proposal and qualifications for developers later into the spring of 2023. So each 3 has its own trajectory at this point, and we're focusing on the west side. But just again, want to emphasize that the city saw opportunity to be in the driver's seat for deciding how these projects would move forward. One other aspect that I wanted to dive in on before we get into the project itself is the amount of investment that the city has already made into the Gladstone neighborhood. Almost $17 million of city resources have been directed through these 3 phases of public improvements. And again, this was a very deliberate action by the city to control what it can to spur redevelopment in this neighborhood. So from Highway 61 to White Bear Avenue, everything along Frost has been improved. So all 3 phases included street and utility improvements. All 3 phases included sidewalk and trail improvements. The first 2 phases, significant investment into the Savannah, the Gladstone Savannah, while also investing in streetscaping, decorative lighting, and burying power lines. Third phase, additional resources were put into Wakefield Park. So again, just want to provide that context that the city has been, over time, invested heavily into this neighborhood with the idea that it would spur redevelopment. Looking at how we got here tonight from a city process standpoint for this project, on September 20th, the CDRB and the Planning Commission reviewed this project. The Community Design Review Board made an initial motion to approve the project, which failed on a 2-2 vote. There was not a majority to move forward, so that motion did fail. There were a handful of items that was part of that motion to approve, like the location of where the trail on the west side of the building, where items would be stored on decks, that even though the motion failed, we did carry through in staff's recommendations for approval, so we wanted to make sure to memorialize the work that was done. A second motion was made by the Community Design Review Board to direct the developer to reduce the density so that all parking spaces could be underground, which is not an ordinance requirement, but that was approved by the design board that evening. Later that night, the Planning Commission held its own public hearing where 16 individuals did address the Planning Commission. After deliberation, the Planning Commission tabled that project, directing the developer to hold a neighborhood meeting, which was done on October 3rd at the Wakefield Park Community Building. That project came back to the Planning Commission last month on the 18th, where the Planning Commission ultimately did recommend denial of the comprehensive plan amendment and the conditional use permit. So, looking at the project, again, the 150-unit building would include a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments. All units would have either a concrete patio on that first level, or the upper floors would have that recessed deck. Amenities would include a club room, fitness room, roof deck, outdoor pool, pickleball court, and a dog run. So again, from staff's perspective, we feel that the developer is a quality developer and is proposing a quality project based on the amenities and the design materials that are moving forward. The current controls of the property, so the future land use plan, medium density residential, more on that in the next couple of slides. The zoning is R3, multiple dwelling. Again, 1160 Frost is the city site, which is currently vacant. That's on the east side of the project site. On the west side is the former Maplewood Marine building at 1136 Frost. That also is comprised of this project site. All those parcels, if this project moved forward, would be combined into a single parcel of property. No uses have been proposed in recent history before what's before you tonight. Again, just as context. And based on the zoning, the proposed use already is a permitted use, multiple dwelling. But we need to address the comprehensive plan aspect as the site is medium density, which allows 6 to 10 units per acre. And the applicant is requesting the comp plan be amended to high density, which would allow up to 25 units per acre. Part of the density calculation, the city code does provide an incentive to construct underground parking, adding 300 square feet to the project sites for every space that is underground. So just over 48,000 square feet is added to the project size based on code requirements today. So with that, applicant's proposal to build 150 units would meet the high density residential designation. It is a 25 unit per acre project. And again, I referenced it a few slides ago. The city has considered comprehensive plan amendments in this neighborhood. You can see on the map on the kind of the northeast area from the project site where the crosshatch is located, that's mixed use. And in the 2040 comprehensive plan, the city increased density to 50 units per acre there. So again, across the street, a little to the east, twice as much density can occur than what is being proposed for this site. Any buildings more than 3 stories in height or 35 feet in height require a conditional use permit. So that's why that the 5-story building and the height overall triggers this requirement. It is a flat roof building that would typically have a height of 56 feet and 8 inches in height. To give context again, down the street at the Frost English redevelopment, it's a different type of architecture that has a pitched roof versus the flat roof, but it is 51 feet tall down the road, just as context. Looking at the design review, the site would be accessed off a single drive from Frost Avenue, so no drives to any of the local roads to the west or south. So again, off the city collector road on Frost Avenue. Just in summary, the building and parking lot meet and exceed all setbacks. You can see the range of setbacks that are listed there and that are also included in your staff report. But just as a summary, the project meets and exceeds all setback requirements. The building itself would be constructed with contrasting light and dark fiber cement lap siding, a wood look lap siding accent boards, with a brick facade to be used on lower levels, and then trim boards to be used throughout the building. So again, from staff's perspective, when we've reviewed other multifamily buildings, this is what we would deem an attractive building for what is being proposed. On parking, multifamily buildings must provide parking spaces for each unit. Again, this is code requirement. at a rate of 2 per housing unit, with half of those being covered. And so that's 300 spaces required. The project is seeking a parking waiver, as it will provide 244 spaces. It is meeting the underground or the covered requirement, as 161 of those spaces would be in the underground garage, and then another 83 would be on the surface lot. In the staff report, the developer provided the rationale for why it believes a parking waiver request should be approved. Staff did look at a handful of other cities, as more and more cities are moving to using bedroom mixes to determine parking count for multifamily buildings. I just wanted to give a sense of where other cities land. Oakdale seems to be somewhat of an outlier because they actually increase it to 363 spaces for a project of this size. And again, this has no context, location context, it's just broadly from the code. Roseville, 262, North St. Paul, 249, St. Louis Park, 239, and then Richfield actually requires the same amount of parking as Maplewood. It goes back to that per unit as opposed, all those other examples use the bedroom mix. Richfield does the 2 per unit, but they have certain requirements codified in their code that if they meet based on the type of project it is, parking could actually come down to 188 spaces. So given all the context of what other cities are doing, the rationale that the developer provided, staff is comfortable with the amount of parking that is being proposed. The applicant, as far as the landscaping plan, is removing 12 trees and planting 154 new trees. This by far meets the tree replacement requirements. I think just looking at that landscaping plan and knowing how many trees how few trees would actually have to go, shows how landscaping itself would transform this site through the trees, the shrubs, the perennials, and grasses. Doesn't it's not a mitigating factor of the building itself, but landscaping is definitely an element that would be an added benefit to this site. Screening and landscaping requirements based on what code requires are being met. And the last slide I have on the design review, this shows an updated version of the site plan. And the outline, the red outline indicates the original building footprint that has been reviewed thus far. This drawing actually came into us from the developer over the weekend. Now, the footprint itself is being slightly reduced as the developers, they've been refining their plans as they continue to finish out their plan set, found some efficiencies and ways to make the building somewhat smaller, somewhat more efficient in construction. I don't think this drawing would convince if you're against the project that now this mitigates your concerns, but it does show the developer is using what it can do to mitigate how big of a footprint is needed for the project. The two other elements that staff honed in on, the dog park and the gazebo on the west side, have now been shifted. Those were requirements that staff had recommended throughout this process, that they be further set back from the residential properties both to the west and the south to meet at least a 50-foot setback. That is now being represented on this drawing. The trail location is an aspect that the Community Design Review Board focused on, and even though that motion did fail because of the 2-2 vote, that having it shift towards the building on the other side of the stormwater pond was something that they were considering for a condition of approval. The developer has incorporated that within this drawing. So just wanted to provide the latest site plan, what the developer has been considering. Last slide here, the public hearing due to the public vacations. That's why the hearing is before you tonight. There are 3 portions of unused right-of-ways within this project area that is being requested to be vacated. Staff has reviewed these 3 areas and they are unused, they are not needed. So staff is recommending approval that these areas be vacated. Staff is requesting that a typical drainage and utility easement be granted around the perimeter of the site. That's typical for development projects. That drainage and utility easement would actually expand to the full 33 feet on the east side of the Frank Street portion next to the Savannah, where that vacation is being proposed. So again, just to provide what the city needs from a drainage and utility aspect. But again, the vacations themselves are being supported by city staff. To get here tonight, the city has sent notices to both property owners within 500 feet of the project site and also within the plat. When you have a public hearing due to vacations, we need to notify all property owners within a plat, so that gets us to 53 property owners. That same group has been being noticed throughout the entire process. So a letter was sent for a neighborhood survey at the very beginning of this review process for the public hearing with the Planning Commission of September. Again, because the continuation of the Planning Commission's review in October, we sent another letter, and then we sent one more public hearing notice for tonight. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the 4 items before you. And again, the public hearing tonight for the public vacation should be held tonight. And then the developer is also present if the council has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, and with that, I believe we have a list. If anyone was signing up and had their name on the back, we are going to take that list for the public hearing tonight.
Questions
Oh.
from council?
Okay. So if anyone needs to sign up for that, Miss Sint is grabbing that right now, so let her know. Okay. Questions? Nikki?
Thank you.
Yep.
A couple questions. The numbers that you were saying about the other cities comparative with the underground parking lots numbers, can you send those to us?
Mayor and council, that is information that we include in your, we could include in your weekly FYI, if that would be helpful. So yeah, we can get that information
Okay.
out to you.
And then the other, the newest map that you showed, can you send that too, please?
Yes, yeah, we can, and we can post both those items of information to the project website, so it's accessible by all.
Okay.
So we will put that to the project website and send it to the council.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was a little concerned by some of the comments and then reading it several times of the term dog park from the public. So I did talk to the representative over the weekend of the project, and I said, dog park implies public. So I did get a verification that this is not a public dog park. Other people cannot go and let their dogs run. It's not a very large area, so it's not going to be where they're throwing Nerf balls and large bones and playing their hearts out. And it's not a dog park. It's a dog area, mainly intended for those people who have dogs that want to make what I call the necessary trips morning and evening if you're going to work or whatever. It is not a sufficient area for an animal to be exercised. So I hope they can find a different name for it, because it isn't a dog park. That implies things that brings other people in and so on. It's just not accurate. So just so you know.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? Bill, do you have anything right now? Okay. And with that, we are going to open the public hearing. I will call your name up, and feel free to come up to the microphone and state your name and address. And we do have a 3-minute timer, so if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. And also, for tonight, the public hearing is on the vacation portions, the 3 unused rights-of-way. So if you'd like to comment on those, we'd like to keep it to that. If you can keep it to the conversations on the right-of-way. The first up would be Pat Vagman. And if I don't say your name right, I'm really sorry. Pat Vaughman.
Pat's going to have you come up in this place.
Okay.
Kim Schmidt, 1800 Phelan Place. I do have several people yielding their time to me, so I will be going over 3 minutes. When we spoke with the mayor, we had a recent meeting with the mayor, a neighborhood meeting, and she said that all of us could be heard, and we mentioned that it says that it's for the public vacation, and she said that we could talk about what we needed to talk about and that we wouldn't be limited to the public vacation.
Okay. Well, it is about the public vacation. That is, my understanding with the public hearing. But also, Kim, I can't let you just take everyone's time. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and if everyone gets a chance to come up here, they can.
She said we could do that last time.
That you, wait. Excuse me. Okay, excuse me.
This is 4 meetings and you keep changing them around.
Okay, excuse me. We're
You
just,
don't know what you're doing.
we're going to run this meeting respectfully, okay?
So
Okay.
I would respectfully request that people be allowed to yield their time to me. It has been allowed before, and I would respectfully request that we be allowed to speak on other topics related to this development.
Kim, I'm allowing you to speak on it. I just don't, how much time do you think you need, and who are you yielding to? I mean, I have a list here, and we have to go through 29 names. So
Sure.
do you want to wait till the end and see if people do not come up?
Oh, so I have asked ahead of time, so my neighbors, Roger Sensen and Anu Sharma, they're willing to yield their time to me.
Okay.
We all gave her a minute.
Okay. Oh, wait, just a minute, because everyone else here might want a chance too. So I'm just trying to go into order, how it runs. I'm going into order with the names. If you want to wait till the people who want to speak first before they yield the time, would you like to do that, Kim?
That would be fine.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering if people will be allowed, since it's 3 minutes and
You're
it's
allowed to come up
limited-
here. I'm allowing you to come up here for 3 minutes and state what you need to say
Okay.
on the project. Okay?
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. So Jody Andanuis? Andrews. Sorry. Yes. You're welcome.
So excuse me if I'm a little unbalanced.
That's
I
okay.
was expecting the mayor to be here as well. And
That's okay.
all the changes that are happening, so
I
if I
understand.
appear nervous, it's because of the statements that
It's-
were made by the city planner,
Okay.
and
We're just here to hear, we're here
Unbalanced,
to
all right.
listen to you.
all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, greetings, council members Cave, is that correct?
Yes.
Juniman, Knutson, and Vicencio.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Nikki, if I don't pronounce that correctly. I want to begin with this. Quiet, calm, peaceful, nature and serenity at its best. This is what the Gladstone Savannah embodies. This is what the Gladstone Savannah represents. And this is what the Gladstone redevelopment plan, completed in 2007, reiterated. Excuse me, I'm extremely nervous.
Okay.
They
That,
purposely do that to you. Yeah, they got it set up like that.
Please.
that the story of Gladstone is told or whispered through the design and improvement of public and private spaces. I'm going to use some abbreviations. Ari, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, so is Ari okay? Is that, okay. And then Reuter Walton, I'm just going to say RW, because I'm bad with pronunciations, sorry. So RW's position, as most of us have heard from Ari, who is the RW developer representative, in order for the Gladstone Savannah project to be viable for his organization, RW needs to build a 5-story apartment complex with at least 160-plus apartments. Now, let me preface this. We've all been hearing about the 150-unit. What I heard Ari represent to the Planning Commission meeting was 160-plus. Is that correct? I have the recording. I'll get it to you. On October 3rd, a neighborhood meeting was conducted by Ari, the RW representative at Wakefield Community Center. And Ari estimated, as presented to the Planning Commission, that approximately 40 or so people were in attendance. The overall outcome was the neighbors definitely are not in favor of a 5-story apartment complex adjacent to the Gladstone Savannah.
That's right.
On October 18th, Ari presented the 5-story apartment proposal to the 6 planning commissioners who unanimously voted no. That being John Eads, Tushar Dasan, Fred Dom, Paul Arbuckle, Ellen Eigg, and Liu Lang. The motion that was brought forward by Tushar Dasan was this: making a motion not to approve an amendment to the 2040 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map to guide the project properties from medium-density residential to high-density residential. Part B, motion not to approve the resolution for a conditional use permit. The motion by Deshar was seconded by Allen, and all those in favor said aye. So unanimously no, not to move forward with this project by your planning commissioners.
Thank you, ma'am.
No, I'm not done.
But your time's up.
The time is always up here.
Can somebody lend me their time that has already signed in?
No, they don't want to hear.
No, please, let's just, yep, yep.
Like Martin happened to.
Okay, the next on the line is Patricia Titus.
Okay, I see that you're vacating Edward Street. Is that correct?
Pardon?
You're vacating
Yes.
Edward Street? Okay,
Yes.
does that go all the way to Ripley?
I don't
No, it
believe so.
doesn't?
No.
Oh, okay, because I want to know, I own property along Edward Street, and I want to make sure that, it's not vacated, because that would totally make it worthless. It would be landlocked.
That's right.
Okay. So it does not go to Ripley?
So it does not go to Ripley.
Correct.
How far does it go from Frost?
Can, Mike?
Yep, Mayor and Council, you can see the portion of Edward Street that's proposed to be vacated is represented on the gray hash, which is from Frost at the northern boundary to north of the Fenton Avenue right-of-way. I know the speaker's property is to the south, and she does have a couple of vacant parcels. This right-of-way vacation does not impact. That's the thing that staff with engineering would most be looking at, is to ensure access
Okay.
to vacant parcels, and that is maintained.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was my main question.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next we have Matthew Schlager. Good evening.
Good evening. So I was under the impression as well that this was the overall meeting, so I'm just going to continue to go with that, if that's okay.
Yep.
So, all right. So, hi, my name is Matthew Schlager, and I live at 1872 Phelan. It's be essentially the southwest corner of the proposed development. Here tonight to oppose the Reuter-Walton 1136-1160 proposal, and ask City Council and Mayor in your support in opposing it as well. My family has been rooted in the Gladstone area of Maplewood since 1954, when my grandfather and his father built the house that I now live in by hand. My wife and I bought the house in 2007 when my grandparents' health took them to the point where the house was too much work. Sorry if I'm trembling a little bit nervous, and I have a lot of passion. So, sitting here tonight, we've already heard some points on both sides, issues that might be up for debate. I even heard apparently the amount of parking spots is up for debate. I don't really know why, but I guess it is. And we've now heard noise. I'm sure people are going to mention traffic. And then, of course, how large and obstructive this particular complex is. I have opinions on all those as well. And I've even done my own analysis on how much this thing is actually going to block the sun. I'm an engineer. I use CAD program to actually figure that out. So I've done that homework as well. But to be honest, I'm not here to actually debate any points or bring up any points that are up for debate. I'd rather focus on things that are not up for debate and that are already fact. Point number one, on June 28th of 2021, the developer received support from this city council and the mayor for a 65-unit apartment building, not the 150-unit being proposed tonight. After receiving approval for the 65-unit apartment, the developer, on their own, drastically changed the plans to a 150-unit complex, putting forth this proposal that is now 2.3 times the size that was approved by the City Council. Point number 2, the Maplewood 2040 Comprehensive Plan, adopted only 3 years ago, clearly states that the properties at 1136 and 1160 are medium density designation, 6 to 10 units per acre. The 2040 Comprehensive Plan was a thorough and extensive effort with input from the community and 8 different city-appointed groups, including City Council, Planning Commission, Parks and Recs, Housing and Economic Development, Environmental and Natural Resource, and the Heritage Preservation Commission. The 150-unit proposal before us, which equates to 25 units per acre, which would be at the very high end of the high-density designation, blatantly disregards what was so carefully laid out by the 2040 plan. And point number 3, on October 18th, our Maplewood Planning Commission voted unanimously 6-0, rejecting the 1136-1160 proposal, citing many of the same points I've previously mentioned. In closing, I sincerely ask for the City Council members and Mayor's support and stand with my wife and I, my neighbors, and your fellow citizens to follow through with the guidance and recommendations of the 2040 plan and our trusted Planning Commission and deny this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Oh, Mike, can you, can I ask you a question? Sure. Mr. Martin, can you comment on the 65 units to 150?
Mayor and Council, so what was approved was a purchase agreement that had two essential clauses to it. And so the 65-unit project was an affordable project that was seeking tax credits through Minnesota Housing. That was essentially like option A of the purchase agreement. And if that did not move forward, then there was an option B to move forward with a market rate building to be essentially the specs to be developed. And this was discussed at council and EDA meetings at the beginning of the year. So the Reuter Walton did not receive the tax credits from Minnesota Housing. If they had, that's the project we'd be looking at. Neither that project, the affordable project, never went through any planning commission, no type of land use entitlements. So once the tax credit project was not an option, then they moved to essentially option B that was laid out in the purchase agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. Next, we have Lois Longholtz.
I gave my time to Kim.
Okay.
I have 3 minutes.
We have Julie Santam. I'm sorry. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Julie Santerre. I live at Edward Street, and I don't know what 53 owners got the letter, but I sure didn't get anything. That's right. So whatever that select few were, you've got property sitting over there where the lodge was. Use that property instead of taking the property. You know, we walk through there. We have, we use the land. But instead, I've been through this rigmarole before. I'm from Stillwater. They took my house for the bridge. But, council brings, how many of you live by the Savannah? Oh, bingo. None of you, right?
I used to.
Well, let's make the decision then. It's just frustrating. People that make the decision have nothing to do with nothing. We can't even get police to come out and maybe use the money to get some more police officers. So when you call them, they can come out instead of saying, you know what, we can't make it because we don't have enough to patrol. We had a guy walking up our neighbor's driveway with a saw to saw off the converter, But they sent them the video. They called. But we can't come out. But, just lock your doors on your car. My neighbor had lock picks in their driveway, in their side entry door. Lock picks to pick their locks to get in their house. But, it's just frustrating. It really is. And you guys want to have this big hoopla, humongous, in that space. And then what do we, the noise is going to go up. You're going to have more crime. use the space that that lodge is on. That's close to the other development. If you're going to go 150 units.
That's rational.
You know, you can go up to the, I don't care, do 600 units over there. But that property is not made for that. For 5 stories and 150 units. When it was brought up tonight with what we were proposed to back when this was, all this development was coming to head. So I don't know, you know, you guys don't live there, so you don't have to care about it. You know, let's just, you know, these guys are gonna make their money for developing, and you guys will have your spot on the board here, but, you know, it doesn't matter, does it?
Thank you. The next one is Jay Schlager. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'll be quick. I was under the impression, same thing, not the variance thing. Joy Schlager, 1872 Phelan Place. Just want to reiterate that the Planning Commission did unanimously vote against this project. I do find it interesting, and I'm hoping it's in your packet, that the rationale, okay, good. The rationale why they voted it down so that you can review it, because they made what appeared to be very thoughtful decisions based on zoning requirements. The comprehensive plan that, again, multiple departments reviewed. So we understand something's going to be built there, but we just hope that you'll consider making sure that's something that aligns with the 2040 comprehensive plan and the neighborhood is put there versus what's proposed today. So that's, and then I didn't quite understand the rationale when they said, but the meeting that we went to on the 18th, there was like a 65 unit thing with the variance, so
That's right.
that the Planning Commission saw.
That's right.
They spoke to, I'm not here to debate that, but it was a different message in that meeting, so it'd be nice to have that kind of heard, because they had the Planning Commission had a packet that was different. So.
Okay, thank you. Maplewood Marlin, 1146 Frost.
That's me.
Oh, okay.
I own Maplewood Marine.
Oh,
My name is
Maplewood
Brian
Marine,
Ness.
okay. Sorry.
All right. But honestly, I
Okay, sir, excuse me.
ever-
Excuse me, this is a public hearing for
Yep,
us.
okay.
So address us.
I don't ever
and-
believe it's, you know, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've been on the property for about 6 years. Put a lot of lipstick and makeup on that baby, and she looks hot. You know, she's, you know, and I put a lot of money into that project. And I'm on a, what they call a conditional use permit, okay? And so this is my retirement you're talking about. This is I've always kept up the property. Nobody's ever come by my place to say, hey, by the way, it really looks great. You know, I think I have probably the nicest looking property on Frost, you know, commercial. And by the way, I have probably 4 or 5 dogs at the office myself with my employees. So, you know, if the dog issue is an issue, it's not an issue. And all I can say is that this is a classy development. It doesn't involve any, for instance, federal money subsidizing anything. Okay, these are going to be doctors. These are going to be 3M people. These are going to be, for instance, that are coming.
Guys, respect, please.
To live in. And by the way, of all these apartments being built, I've literally can watch Phelan Place has never ever changed as far as how many people go down that street north and south. I would know, quite honest with you. In all these apartments that have been built just to the east of me, hasn't affected Phelan whatsoever. And I can tell you that, and that's all I can tell you. So, but I you know, thank you very much for letting me have a conditional use permit. I manufacture equipment for Kimberly-Clark, 3M. I'm a small guy, but I make some really nice equipment. But quite honestly, with this, I have now, for instance, moving out because hopefully the developer will be building a beautiful, beautiful place for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
He's classy. I've seen his stuff.
Okay, next we have Roger Breheim.
I own the property.
Hey, hey.
My name's Roger Brigham. I live at 1257 Frisbee Avenue. My property, unfortunately, had the Savannah Park on one side of it, nice wooded area, and on the other side is walking trail and all that stuff. I lived in Maplewood all my life, probably before any of you were ever born. And I've worked with the city of Maplewood for 25 and a half years. You probably, I don't know if you remember, Chuck All still owes me a 25-year pin. And so anyhow, my deal is that nobody wants that, well, nobody here wants the property. And being for the fact is, one of the things is, you're going to have a 5-story building. And those residents right there, I don't care, they don't want people on the 5th floor, 4th floor, 3rd floor, looking at them, looking down on them during the summer. And in wintertime, all the leaves are gone, it's wide open, and they can be out there looking. My suggestion is for the city to buy his property, add on to the park, on to the very open space. You know, and then we all own it, and he gets his money for the property being sold. I don't blame him. You know, I was on the fire department for 20 years also in Maplewood here. And, you know, I've seen a lot of progress. I think the departments on Frost and English right now worked out pretty good because the bowling alley was there. Nothing was really disturbed. You've got the old railroad tracks and that went by there, now the trail. And that fit in pretty good. That's a good area. But where they want the 5-story mansion, you know, they really don't need it. So buy the property, make everybody happy, open space, no light, what do you call it, invasion or getting more lights and stuff. We don't need it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Tim Halloran. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Tim Halloran. I live at 1915 Phelan Place. This is my first city council meeting too, so that's kind of fun. I'm not eloquent, so I made bullet points. And I also don't have as well argued reasoning as Kim and some other of my neighbors. But the main issues I have is around safety, speed on that road. Since I moved in around COVID, August 2020, there were trees on the embankment between my house and the road, and those were mowed down by some road rage incidents. And then there was shrapnel all over my yard and things like that. So speed has been an issue since at least 2020, and it's not gotten any better. It possibly has gotten worse. The second thing is, a few people mentioned it, but crime in the area. There's been a few things stolen from my place, an e-bike, like a $1,200 e-bike, Amazon packages, things like that. I just would want to make sure that, and I'm assuming with a new place like this coming in, there's going to be a lot more foot traffic, a lot more real traffic, and that means potentially more instances of packages and other things getting stolen. And then, let's see, the last thing was, I was looking at the parking numbers based on comparable cities. Can I ask questions or no? Okay.
Never respond.
Okay.
I mean, I'll ask him when your time is up, so it won't waste your time.
I would just want to know, are the comparable cities non-street parking as well? Because when you do like a 1-to-5 ratio, a 160 unit building times a 1.5 to 1 ratio, that's like 240 some parking spots. And I would just want to make sure that there's mitigation issues at a minimum to make sure that that doesn't spill over into our neighborhood. Yeah. And I had a few other things, but that's all I have right now. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Martin, could you answer that the best that you can?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, first and foremost, the council's being asked for a waiver against Maplewood's code. So I think I don't want to lose sight of that's the ultimate rule that we're looking at. Yes, the majority of the cities that we looked at also prohibit, most suburban communities prohibit on-street parking, and that's what we looked at. And we also try to then look at either neighboring or like generally communities.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Nick Lira. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Nick Lira. I live at 1789 Edward Street. I am also new to this. I think all the other sentiments from the other people are pretty true for me too. Just like the initial 65 and then it went up times more than 2. And yes, the issues of the traffic and the just volumes of people. What I think for me that hasn't been brought up is a food desert. So the nearest food grocery store, I think, is like 5 miles by car, but that already has a lot of already set infrastructure and housing and apartments by it. The next, I think, food, like big food grocery store is Maplewood Mall, and that's, again, kind of pivoted around. So I think that might be like 9 or 10 miles. So I'm just kind of in the process of, if you do increase more people, and again, you guys are going to make the decisions that you do, I'm thinking about the food insecurity, because if you do increase the population by, well, if it's 150, and then you think like 3 people are going to live there, right, each, so then you do the math, that's a lot of people that need a lot of resources in a pretty dense area, because then you already have those 2 high rises that are already there. So I'm just thinking of food deserts, resource allocation, and then I guess if just food desert, or just like resources for like groceries, thinking like even like automotive, safety, transportation, that kind of stuff too just comes to mind for, you know, just population increase and kind of location. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Jane Wagleitner.
I'm Jane Wagleitner. I live at
Welcome.
1865 Walter Street. I had no intention of saying anything tonight, but there's some nagging kind of things that I'd like to ask the council, and that's, who are you working for? Are you working for the public, or are you working for Maplewood? You all seem to have an agenda that, when the first thing out of your mouths tonight was, we decided this, and we are going to do that. And I just think it's so unfair. Why are we here? So I just feel like I'm just helpless, absolutely helpless. And I think that things could be handled a little better. If you don't want public opinion, then don't open the door for it. But if you just want to do things yourself and have it your way, then that's what you do. So don't waste our time, and we won't waste yours. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have Ray Wagleitner. Ray Wagleitner.
Oh, Councilman. I'm Ray Wagleitner. I live at 1865 Walter Street.
Welcome.
We lived there for 30 years. It's been a very peaceful and quiet neighborhood, and enough retirees to balance things off and a young family across the street. But I want to speak against this proposal because it's in the interest of very few people, except those that are developing it. And they're in it for a profit, and we know that, and that's the way the world exists. But I think it would be much more peaceful if we just left the neighborhood the way it was and not put high buildings in it. And you know, the question I got is, what is this going to do for our taxes? We're going to have a lot of young people apparently going to live in these buildings, and it's going to definitely raise our taxes. So that's something we have to consider.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I guess what we have to do is look to the long term, 20-year term, or 25, 30-year term, and see how this is going to affect our lives. And I think it's going to affect those that live in the neighborhood next to these buildings. Now, I don't know if you'd want a billboard in front of your place, 30 feet or 50, this buildings are going to be 52, what do you say, 52 feet high.
Well, Melinda Coleman wouldn't.
Please.
No, the city manager, she lives on 2
Excuse
acres
me,
about a meet.
excuse me. I'm not gonna, no interruptions when people are talking, please.
Anyhow, I'm opposed to it. I think we've done some development in the area by the South Shores and the bowling alley where it used to be, and we're going fast enough and far enough for a while. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I have John Wagleitner.
John Wegelator, 1082 Fenton. I guess you get the trifecta of Wegelators tonight.
I was wondering.
I've called all of you on the phone. I've emailed some. I've talked to the Zoning and Planning Commission, and they have unanimously struck this thing down. They shot it down. They voted, all of them voted against this. There's a reason for that. That's their business. We defer to their expertise. They said no. There was nobody in the room a couple weeks ago that voted for this. It was unanimous, not only with the council, planning and zoning commission, but also all the members of the room. We didn't have the pleasure of your company then, but he might have a different interest than the people that actually live here. You hear the themes over and over again. The congestion, the lighting issues, the dust, the noise. Just off topic a little bit, McMenemy project. It's been going on, and it's been a pain in the ass. Really has. And it's still going on. There's no road there. We're talking about a bike trail. So that's a little off topic, but we don't want the noise. We don't want the congestion. We don't want the lighting issues. Nobody here really wants it except perhaps the owner of a property that will probably do just fine from a sale. I saw some word salad in the presentation, and one thing jumped out at me. It says, quote, "The new structure will also enhance the streetscape along Frost Avenue by infilling what appears to be a missing tooth." So some here are looking at this thing like a missing tooth. I'm looking at it as a dead tooth, a decaying tooth, an abscess tooth nobody wants. We've had a good run in this area for a long time. It's just fine. We love the peace. We love the quiet. We proposed single-family residence in and around this area, but what I got from the builder and Michael Martin was that we can't make any money on this. Well, if you guys are in it to make money, we're all here wasting time. Is there anybody here that doesn't think we could put single-family homes in the area instead of this 5-story monstrosity? It's just a complete conflict of interest. There's all the people that live in the area that pay taxes for years, and then there's one builder from who knows where that's got gobs of these things around the city. He doesn't live near this thing. He never will. He's on a completely different wavelength than the rest of us. So what I'd say is listen to your Planning and Zoning Commission. They're the experts. They've listened to us so far. We're going to parlay and hope that you do the same. Vote this thing down.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Jim Erlinson. Jim Erlinson. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Jim Erlinson. I live at 1901 Walter Street, about 2 blocks down. I did receive the letters, and I'll just be brief. As a nearby resident, I support the Planning Commission and their opposition and voting down the proposal. I think could be a very good proposal in a different neighborhood, but you have a planning document, you have a Maplewood plan. You should stick to it and have medium density. Otherwise, why did we go to all that work to put it together? So I support the Planning Commission's turning down the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Kahutake Lianke. Okay. Oh, you yield your time? Okay. Okay. Then we have Nicole Peterson. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Nicole Peterson, and I live at 1828 Walter Street. I think I'm outside of the radius where we didn't receive any letters. However, my family is very concerned about this proposed development. It's my understanding that for the vacation, it needs to be for the public's interest, and I think we have enough people here that shows that the public is not supporting this and has major concerns and does not feel that this building is in their best interest. I have 2 young boys, and actually after dinner we like to go to the Savannah Park. That's kind of what we do. I'm worried about the increase in traffic, especially because many of the streets down there don't have sidewalks. So when people try to access it on Frost, they're going to come down Walter, they're going to come down Phelan Place, and yeah, I have major concerns about our safety. It isn't just that this building doesn't fit with the neighborhood, it's also that when we moved here about 7 or 8 years ago, we were looking for a quiet neighborhood. We looked into the city's plans, and this was medium density residential. I understand that plans change, that we have to adjust things, but it's also my understanding that there are other developers who are interested in building medium residential in this area. And my question, or I would just ask that the council fully explore those ideas before making an amendment to the plan in the density. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next is Kevin Schmidt. Kevin Schmidt? Yes. It's okay. Welcome.
I had something written, but it's obviously not going to fit your time, so I'd like it on the record, please.
Okay. Give that to our.
So I'm just going to speak off the cuff here a little bit. I feel that Michael Martin is being a bit disingenuous about there being no other options for this area. It took a neighbor all of 2 phone calls to find people who would be willing to put in medium density housing here, including a developer who was willing to put in single-story townhomes. So for him to say and continue to say tonight that there's no other thing that can be done here is pretty disingenuous. Let's see here. The city is not in the business of making any of us wealthy. And so I am sorry for the owner who thinks that he sees this as his retirement. But you know what? I have 1/3 of an acre. There's a park across the street from us. Maybe you guys want to sell that park to me and vacate the street in front of us, and we can put in a 6-story building right in the middle of the single-family residential. According to Michael Martin, there is no requirement by the city to have anything that is, a change in density between the different areas. He made that very clear at one of the meetings. And there would be no design standards because, again, this wasn't part of the plan. My property is that way. So maybe you guys should just make me wealthy by letting me build that. As far as taxes go, 10 years ago when we did this plan, you guys told us that we needed this density because we needed taxes. Well, I haven't seen my taxes go down or even stabilize. So I don't think that's really a very good argument. And then finally, you've asked us all to be professional here. I find Melinda Coleman and Kathleen Juneman having their sidebar conversations and making stickering remarks at people with what they say is to be very unprofessional.
Okay. Next, we have Bob. I'm sorry, Bob. Kiernoys? Okay. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Bob Knoyer.
Knoyer.
And I owned the strip mall on Frost and English for many years. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
The reason I'm here, and I'm probably going to get hated from almost everybody behind me, number one is if somebody did the research like I did, the police calls were mainly for, the police calls are very high in relation to the population of Maplewood in the building that houses the lower income. Let's face it, it's just plain the truth. The older people living next door, there's no police calls there, but maybe the director of public safety would know this. There's an extreme amount of police calls there. That's where your crime comes from. Wow. I'm sorry?
Wow.
I'm asking Kevin to stop interrupting.
Yeah. Kevin, please.
All right.
Otherwise, you can go out in the hallway.
Yeah, I
No,
apologize.
then to go out in the hallway.
You're taking up my time. All right. My point to you is this, is that I think the building would be good. And I'll tell you why. It is true that it's going to be a higher income of people there. We've spent so much money developing Frost and English over the years. Bill Preeb built the center. The roads have great sewers in them. The Savannah's not used the way it was used years ago. But there's not that many people that are walking in there. But I think for the community's sake and for tax base, everything, this building would be magnificent. I truly do. And I think it's going to enhance the area to have a higher income amount of people living in these. These are not apartments that, from what I studied, are going to be low-income people. That's really all I have to say. The final thing is I'm very unbiased with Brian. I've got to know him over 6 or 7 years. In fact, he bought a bed for me and he returned it. So that kind of just tells you that that I'm not taking his side, but I think he's a great guy, and he improved that building tremendously when he purchased it. So I hope I'm making sense here, but I think this would be good for the community. I think it's great for the tax base, and I think most of the people in back of me are going to find that you're not going to have the crime that you think you're going to, because again, you have higher income people living in here. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Pat Polzer, 1852 Walter Street.
Who is that?
Pat, and is it Polzer, 1852 Walter Street?
I live there.
Okay. Do you want to come up and speak, sir?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
been here some years. Hi, Ribbon.
You're the sexiest guy up
I got a few questions I'd like to ask.
Okay, well, come up to the podium and wait till you get up here.
My kids.
Oh.
Yeah, if you need any help, I can help you. No, go give it a.
Okay,
I got a
welcome.
question to ask you. Is there anybody here that lives in one of these apartments they built in the last 10 years? Anybody here? No. I want them to tell the council about their beautiful home and what they put into it. They want the council to know that. These people paid a lot of taxes and have a hell of a time just keeping their roads clean. When I'm going around giving half of the neighborhood away. But I ain't got a lot of time here, so I mean, if I'd had my way, I'd have been gone a long time ago. And Maplewood has a good reason to know why they don't want me here. That's Rebecca, Kathleen. Where's the mayor?
She's ill.
She
Sorry.
taking a day off?
No.
Oh, good. Well, anyway, I want to tell these people here that came up here, I hope you didn't waste your time because I'm hard of hearing. And the propaganda they've been putting out, I didn't hear. I'm still the old way. If you want to do something, you can do it yourself. You know, you can't depend on these people because you have to go out and you have to take care of yourself and your will and your children. And there's bad enough that this city does not even have a high school, but you're willing to put all that money into this and that and this and everything, but you never put yourself after for the city of Maplewood. Where is Maplewood High School? Where are they, leaders? You're the leaders. You're all asleep. Can't you remember when you were in kindergarten? Could you remember you were in the first grade and you're in high school? Your friends you made? And you didn't have to go and have everybody in like North St. Paul rob you blind. You took care of everything but your city. Now, I can tell you when I had my ups and downs with this place, they only were running about $25 or $30 million for their budget, and their budget was set. And they didn't have any more money for anybody else but for their retirement, for their police cars, for their buildings, for their stuff, where they can all go and sit in their glory. Well, you guys are in your glory, and you will pay for it if you don't do the right thing. The right thing is what to do and hope that these people can have children that at least want to come back to Maplewood. I wonder how many are coming back to Maplewood after what you took care of yourselves.
Thank you, sir.
Amen.
And I believe there's a Bab Polzer. Doesn't want? Okay. Okay. Next, I have Jay Carlson.
I'm giving my minutes to Kim.
Okay. Next, Diana Longry. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. I'm Diana Longry, 1778 DeSoto, longtime resident of Maplewood. I do want to comment that I think it would have been appropriate to continue the public hearing until the time when the vote's going to be taken. There's too much required to fit this square peg into a round hole. Plus, this project requires tax increment financing, from what I understand, from the developer. Now, we've heard something about how this is going to increase tax base. Well, it might increase tax base, but with the TIF project, you won't be actually able to realize that increase in your tax base until the end of the TIF project is over. Is that 25 years? How long is your TIF going to be? This 5-story building will be higher than the trees in the neighborhood. It is not in character with the neighborhood. It's grossly inconsistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan. But there is more. The vacation that you are requesting here tonight paves the road for this 5-story building. No pun intended. Now, the current 2040 comprehensive plan considers medium-density housing. Now, I know that both of the property owners who are looking to sell their property, when they bought their property, they knew what the land use guidance was for their property. They knew that it was medium density. No case has been made here tonight as to why that medium density somehow does not fit any longer. This medium density allows buildings that are only so tall. Allowing a building that's more than twice the height of what is allowed currently under the comprehensive plan impacts the immediately adjacent property owners, their air rights and their site of view rights that they currently hold under the current comprehensive plan. Now, are you going to require the developer to purchase these rights from the property owners to permit this height? That is not something that they bargained for. Now, lastly, we've heard certainly from one of the owners that is looking to sell their property, but we really haven't heard from the other owner, and that is the city of Maplewood. Now, the city of Maplewood really hasn't made their case as to why suddenly they are in a pinch for the reason that they bought property in the first place, knowing it was medium density, and that now some reason or other that, that they just really are, in a hardship, that they have to have a higher density. It's because it's something they want, not because it's a necessity, not because of some pinch that they're in. It's not our fault if you paid $100,000 more than market value to buy this property. And lastly, the staff recommendations say that part of the support for this is because there is going to be the purple line going down the Bruce Venno Trail. But how can that possibly be a supporting fact for this when just in October 24th, you all presented to the media and the rest of the metro that you pulled your support for the purple line? So explain that.
Thank you. Next, I have Stephanie Lincoln. Lindholm, apologize.
First public speaking engagement.
Welcome.
I'm Stephanie Lindholm. I live at 1700 Frank Street, so I'm a little further south than the project. I feel like you're trying to park a pontoon boat in the middle of the boundary waters with that building. And as lovely as the redevelopment of Frost Avenue is, I'm concerned about the traffic on English Street. It's very busy. We have bike trails crossing English and Frost. And while it's the law to stop for the bicyclists and the pedestrians, we have forgetful citizens sometimes that don't yield. And we keep the redevelopment plan. When you were redeveloping Gladstone, didn't say we were going to put in multiple story buildings. I feel like if you increase the population quite a bit in that area, the density, and done nothing to improve the traffic on English Street. If you're a commuter and you have to go down English, either going or coming from work, it's not a pleasant experience. And I'm also concerned about the precedent that you're setting in this building. Do we need to worry that you're going to buy out our properties and put up more big 5-story buildings in the area? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kevin Berglund. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I guess, however, the one I really need to say good evening to is the City Manager, Melinda Coleman. Of course, Melinda Coleman pulls all the strings in a city like this. And since she's been here for over 25 years, everything has continued to fail. City Hall is a disaster. She smiles, but it's a disaster.
Kevin, this is about let's keep it with the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, but there is more. Okay, so we watched as the government lied to us about the Vietnam War. Parallel, we watched as City Hall, I believe, lied to us about that they were getting out of the Purple Line. Now, is the City Hall lying to the residents, or are they lying to Reuters Walton? Of course, the City Hall, and in particular I'm talking about the city manager, Melinda Coleman, she hid this from the public from, I think it was, when they first, Reuters Walton came forward, was that in November 2021. She hid this from the public until September of 2022. Scoundrels, a disaster. But are you any surprise? This is the first public hearing that Melinda Coleman has allowed anybody to talk at about the issues in Maplewood since the gag order was established in 2017. I think everybody here, except for one, knows that City Hall is a disaster, and this whole thing is rigged. We're going through an exercise because the city manager has her puppets. And boy, is it shocking that Melinda Coleman has not lived one day of her life in Maplewood, and that she's living,
Kevin,
I think,
Kevin,
on a two. Oh, I apologize.
Can you keep it to the?
Well, and I'm just talking about the credibility of the city manager who is proposing this vacation. Can you believe she hasn't lived one day of her life in Maplewood? Instead, she resigned for.
Kevin, yeah.
With all due respect, Ms. Mayor, would you please allow me to make my points? That's
unless
not fair.
You're not, no personal attack in here. I want you to do it on the project, please.
I am just giving you the facts of the credibility in question here.
I want to hear the
The
project.
credibility is Melinda Coleman is bringing this project to here while she's living on a 2-acre
Kevin, you're
parcel
finished.
in Matamidi.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Okay, next
Thank
we
you,
have
Ms. Mayor.
Kim Schmidt.
Pardon me, Kathy? Would you speak up, please?
Okay.
Well, you were mumbling something to me, directly to me. Would you please say what
Okay,
you had to
Kim,
say?
there looks like there's to be 8 people who, including yourself, there's 7 people who gave their time up to you.
Okay.
So there was 8. No, there was 8. So I'm going to put that in for, hang on one second.
Excuse me, I gave my time to Jody. I said Kim on there, so Barb won. My time is.
Yep, I believe anybody who said there was to Kim, Roger. So Kim, is 20 minutes going to be all right for you to?
Yes, 20
Okay.
minutes will be fine. Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Then I'll put it on just so we know. Okay.
Yeah, I've timed myself. It doesn't take 20 minutes.
Okay.
It takes more than 3, but not 20 minutes.
Well, then you go. Thank
Okay.
you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kim Schmidt, 1800 Phelan Place. Good evening, council members and city staff. I would like to begin this evening by reading an email that I sent to the council members yesterday with a few minor changes. After that, I would like to expand into a couple areas. Hello, council members. I am writing to you as a resident of Maplewood and the Gladstone neighborhood. The planned 5-story apartment building for 1160 Frost Avenue in Gladstone has been overwhelmingly opposed by the neighborhood. Maplewood has a plan for the Gladstone neighborhood, one that was created 15 years ago between the residents and the city, including Melinda Coleman, who was the assistant city manager at the time. This plan was not what the residents wanted, and it was not what the city wanted, but a compromise which the residents said they could live with. Residents wanted single-family homes built on the edge of the savannah, but compromised with townhomes. Residents still want single-family homes, but will accept townhomes in this location. Townhomes will provide the graduated shift in density from low to medium to high density, which follows best management practices. This proposed development from Reuters-Walton does not fit with the comprehensive plan, and the council should be directing city staff to seek developers who are able to fulfill the requirements of that plan. Stated by a representative from Reuters-Walton at the neighborhood meeting at Wakefield, it has been about a decade since Reuters-Walton has built townhomes. They are not a developer with a realistic interest in smaller developments. They are looking to build larger projects with greater profit margins. While the job of the developer is to turn a profit, it is not the duty of the Gladstone residents or the city of Maplewood to make a hugely profitable project for this developer. Reuters-Walton has stated several times, no one else will build here. However, a Gladstone neighbor has found 2 developers that are interested in building townhomes at 1136, 1160 Frost Avenue, and one has reached out to city staff. Maplewood's website has a link to the available commercial properties, and this property is not listed on the map. It does list the property on East Shore with the proposed development and the retail strip on Frost Avenue. But the property at 1136, 1160 is missing from the map. For a developer to know that the property is available for development, it needs to be indicated as available. Otherwise, it is not known as an option for development. The Community Design Review Board said it was too dense for the neighborhood. The Planning Commission unanimously said the development was not right for the area and suggested that it be put in the north end of Maplewood. It is not consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, and the residents do not support this development. Please choose to represent the residents of Gladstone and vote with the wishes of the residents. The request is that the council would vote no to the variance, which increases the density from medium to high density, to vote no to the conditional use permit going from 4 stories to 5 stories, to vote no to the parking variance, which would require less available parking spaces, and to vote no to the permanent vacation of Frank, Edward, and Fenton. The decisions you make December 12th will have long-lasting effects on the direction and future of this neighborhood. And now I'd like to transition into a few other general topics. One regarding the Gladstone redevelopment, another related to the lack of Hmong engagement, and then I do have a petition I'd like to present to the council. It was from the neighborhood. I have 97 signatures, and there are 8 email signatures. So looking back in time at the Gladstone redevelopment from 15 years ago, there was about 200 residents involved in the redevelopment. This was a 1 to 2 year long process of many meetings, and at the end of it, there was a plan of compromise between the city and the residents, a plan that is already being eroded by city staff with a tweak here and a tweak there to put the plan back to the original high-density plan. That original plan from the city contained much greater density than the compromise reached with the residents. City staff has already increased the density in one of the projects from 31 units per acre to 50 units per acre. And here they are, back at it again, trying to increase the density from 6 to 10 units per acre up to 25 units per acre. Originally, I believe it was 50, but I guess it's 25 now. This area at 1136, 1160 is a beautiful landscape and would be a desirable place for single-family homes or townhomes to be built. Reuters-Walton has said that no one will build here, but we have found interested parties, and we would like city staff to pursue a townhome development with this developer or another one. Also, individuals and families would buy single-family lots, and they would pay for the home to be built, and they would pay for the utilities to go in. That is what people do when they build homes. And when you talk about demand and lack of supply, it is those very lots that people want. And there isn't a much prettier spot to build on than one that overlooks the savannah. I also have neighbors that own open lots, and they have shared with me that they are continually asked to sell so that single-family homes can be built on those open lots. The neighbors of Gladstone would prefer single-family homes, but as a compromise, will support the building of townhomes in this location. And I did leave out, I skipped one sentence in here. Also, one member of the Planning Commission stated, it sounds like the city is trying to up the ante. There's another aspect of city engagement that needs to be addressed. During a recent council meeting, there was a diversity, equity, inclusion presentation for the council. The presenter told the council that nearly 1 in 5 residents in Maplewood are Hmong, and I would suggest in my neighborhood that it would be closer to a third. This presentation focused on the food of Asian cultures. I have been through DEI training, and food of a culture is the entry point to learning about other cultures. For this engagement to be inclusive of the Hmong residents, the city needed to determine what is required for the Hmong to have the opportunity to be engaged. It is not the responsibility of the potentially disenfranchised group to figure out how the situation can be made equitable and how they can be included in the conversation. For the city to be culturally competent, they need to do the work to include the Hmong, not make it the responsibility of the Hmong. Instead, the bare minimum of flyers in the English language were distributed to neighbors within 500 feet. This does not feel like genuine engagement. I cannot speak for the Hmong community, but I can share my interactions with the Hmong who live on Frisbee. A younger Hmong man explained to his non-English speaking Hmong neighbors what was being proposed, and he told me that when those neighbors learned of the project, they were upset and angry. But conveniently, the city does not need to listen to these neighbors since the avenue to make this possible was not provided. This is not cultural competence, it is not equitable, and it is not inclusive. Tonight, we are here to decide the fate of one proposed project, but also to consider a different direction for Gladstone. Is the council going to let the city disregard the citizen engagement from the Gladstone redevelopment, or will the council direct staff to find developers that will work within the 2040 comprehensive plan? The neighbors of Gladstone are asking the council to vote no to the myriad of variances and no to the requested conditional use permit. If this proposed project was such a great fit for the neighborhood, there would be no need to ask for all of these variances, a CUP request, or changes to the 2040 comprehensive plan. It is now up to the council to decide if you will do what residents elected you to do and represent their interests, or if you will represent the interests of the Met Council, Ramsey County, and developer profits. What you decide on December 12th will have long-lasting effects on this area. Lastly, the neighborhood would like to present to the council a petition from the neighborhood. This petition has 105 Gladstone neighbors on it, 97 signatures on paper, 8 by email. The reasons opposing this project include: high-density housing does not represent a gap in Maplewood's Gladstone neighborhood housing mix. The project does not fit into the overall planned, orderly, and graduated development between the redevelopment areas of Gladstone and the existing single-family homes as set forth in the 2040 comp plan. The parcels to be purchased for the project have a combined acreage of only 3.88 acres. The project does not ensure the efficient use of city services, considering the Gladstone Fire Station is closed and a 5-story building requires an aerial ladder fire truck that can reach at least 75 feet. This area is currently lacking in good transit options for high-density developments. The project is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and that there is a park, land, and green space adjacent north and east of the project and adjacent to single-family homes to the west. And let's see here, getting to the end. Please deny these requests for the proposed development at 1136, 1160 Frost Avenue. Listen to the Planning Commission recommendation, listen to the Design Review Board that the plan was too dense, and listen to the Gladstone neighbors who have joined in presenting a petition to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You want to move on? Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we're closing the public hearing for this evening.
I thought Jody was getting Barb's time, or no? Yeah. Does Jody get Barb's time, or no?
Did I not? Okay, well then, hang on. Opening back the public hearing. I apologize, Jody. Oh, you were getting, okay. Sorry, I circled that for. She's getting another speaker. So she has 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim elaborated on a lot of the items that I was going to cover. Some things to consider regarding the overall neighborhood density. I was focusing on what we can do from line of sight density. There's density that we know of that's down by Phelan. We've got the 4-story apartment, the Shores, and then we have the co-op that's pending, and then we have the other long-standing resident with the apartments facing the lake. I forget their Parkview, I believe, is what they're called. Sorry, I'm a little muddled here. Sorry. So I just wanted to share with you that between Frost and Larpenteur, kind of the demographic here, and English and East Shore, there are approximately 211 single-family homes. Yeah, I looked at the map and I counted them. And there are 2 high-density departments that many of you have already discussed, the Frost English Village, which has 50 units, and the English Silver unit, which has 55-plus units, and that has 107 units. So with the RW, I'm just going to go there, 165 is roughly half the existing density in that small area. And others have mentioned the concerns with traffic on English. It's already very, very busy on Frost. The roundabout has been a fantastic implementation, but with that much more traffic, it's going to be very busy. And it really isn't any way to veer off of Frost. There's a few areas where you can pull over, but it's 1 lane each way, which is going to be an opportunity if there's an accident or some other occurrence. That's very disconcerting. So in closing, I just want to add those few things. To preserve and protect the Gladstone Savannah by making a motion regarding the properties located at 1136 and 1160 Frost Avenue with a pending purchase order from RW. To not accept the conditional use permit for the proposed apartment structure to go from 4 stories to 5 stories. Deny the variance request for medium density to high density housing. Deny the variance for reduced parking requirement, and to deny request to permanently vacate the streets at Fenton, Walter, and Edward. And again, I would like to reiterate, there is a very well-respected townhome developer that has contacted a city planner, and I would like them to further address that townhome developer with their interest if they can. I think that's a good option that we should pursue, because that matches with the 2040 plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I am closing the public hearing for this evening.
Can I just say one thing, please, real quick? We respect everybody that's involved in all this. It's just the sizing is what the issue is. And
We hear it.
if you
We hear
do
you.
do it, you need to increase the roundabout down on Frost, because that light's been taken out 10 times now. And you don't have any street lights anymore because someone stole all the wires of the fancy lights that you have.
Yep.
So maybe
Thank you.
focus a
Thank you. Okay, and with that, oh. Developer, would you like to get up and speak?
Thank you,
Good
council members.
evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi.
Michael, could you pull up our presentation?
We don't have any time for the developer.
My name's Ari Peretz. I represent Reuter Walton, and I appreciate the patience that everybody has demonstrated tonight. I respect all the folks who gave up their evenings to spend with us and to share their thoughts and their comments, which I think are well rooted and authentic, and we hear it. This is our fifth meeting of a type like this, and the vast majority of the comments have been shared with us along the way, and we've endeavored to improve our plan to the extent that we can within practical limitations at each interval. And so what I wanted to highlight is some homework that we got out of the Planning Commission meeting. And it was a request that we really deeply study the Gladstone area plan that so many of the neighbors have referenced tonight. I dug it up, I read it top to bottom, and I went through and highlighted everything that I thought was an important takeaway from that plan's application to this project. So, Michael, if you advance a couple slides, these are just some of the images which I know you've seen in your council packets. I did want to bring back some of the project goals, like what are we trying to accomplish tonight? And these goals were shared at the very first neighborhood meeting that we had, which was lightly attended, to put it mildly. But I wanted to anchor everyone in where we started and how we got to where we are tonight. So I won't read these off for you verbatim, but this is not just about making money. We felt like there was an opportunity to help Maplewood grow and to add something that is in extremely high demand. The Gladstone Area Plan talks all about the need to produce more housing types. And staff noted in the beginning of the presentation the variety of different housing types that have already been built and the variety of housing types that have yet to be built. And we felt like from the very beginning, looking at the site, that we could fill a void, whether it was in that smaller format tax credit affordable project, which we were not approved for, that was never shared with anybody. The only place that ever appeared was in our purchase agreement with the city. And it was clearly demonstrated that we would do that if we got an allocation. We didn't get an allocation, so instead of abandoning the project and walk away, we had another option, and that's how we started kind of phase two of this process. So if you advance another slide, Michael. I wanted to touch on just a couple of the parts of the neighborhood plan that we felt were relevant. And we knew about this plan before we started. It wasn't a revelation to us just coming out of the Planning Commission meeting and hearing some of the comments from neighbors. We knew about this plan. We just felt like it was a good opportunity to go back and study it and really underscore where we felt like our plan was complementary to what the folks back in 2007 hoped to achieve, which I know a couple of the council members were deeply involved in. So we have side by side the conceptual master plan from 2007 for this parcel. That's the image on the left. And then we have our site plan today, which is the image on the right. And you can see that they're very different buildings, right? The concept on the left has a collection of 50 or so buildings, which is consistent with the medium density zoning. It fills up much more of the site than our current plan does. It has much more pavement with driveway access and garage access. And the residences are set twice as close to the adjacent homes as our current plan. You can see the row of orange furthest to the left, which is furthest to the west on the site, and then look at where our building ends on the image to the right. These are both to scale. Our building on the right is an additional 55 to 60 feet further set away from the residence. And we did that on purpose. We knew that as a matter of setback in the zoning code, you could build a building 50 feet away from the property line. But we worked through 7 or 8 different conceptual plans from last summer through essentially last week, trying to find ways to improve this project and set this building in the most ideal location on it. Because you can see there's considerable open space on this site. And Michael, if I could ask if you could advance. This was the very first site plan that we started with. And I know there was a couple references and a little bit of confusion to comments that I made at the Planning Commission about 165 unit building. What I was trying to explain, so let me set the record straight, is that we started, when we were working on this market rate concept, we started with 165 units. We said, let's see if we can get that to fit on the site, and this is basically how it was oriented. And after studying this and reviewing it with staff and the rest of our team, we felt like this could be improved. It was a fine place to start, but it could be improved in a handful of different ways. One, it was basically turning its back to the Savannah, set right up against the eastern property line. And it had an ocean of pavement facing the neighbors. And we said, well, this isn't right. Like they're not going to appreciate this. This is a missed opportunity. And we also, heard from staff that we were probably leaning a little bit too large. So if you go to the next site plan, Michael, we flipped the building and said, well, what if we essentially do the opposite? Right? And so this helped in some ways, it didn't help in others, and we continued to iterate and find ways to improve. So if you advance to the next slide, Michael, you can see that we're moving the building east to west, trying to find where is a natural place to strike an accord with all of the competing interests around the site, the traffic on Frost, the neighbors to the west, the Savannah to the east, and hoping that this building could kind of rest in a just right spot. This plan had a deficiency, we felt like, in having too much parking and also having more pavement separating our building from the adjacent neighbors. And we felt like that was a total mistake to have what the buffer is be pavement and be parked cars. Right now on the site, and I know that the Gladstone plan talked about the problem of having too heavy of an industrial use here and wanting to see more housing and more mixed use. Right now, the site has storage. And it's storage of different recreational vehicles. That's a perfectly fine business, which we know and we all need in one way, shape, or form. But it's not necessarily the most beautiful thing to look at, whether you live on Phelan Place or whether you're driving down the street on Frost. So we wanted to beautify that connection and really improve the transition from Phelan Place to this building. So if you go to the next slide, Michael. This was an intermediate where we tried to figure out if we could have two different access points off of Frost. And if you go to the next one, we then cut it out entirely and worked to tuck more of the parking in underground and have the surface parking that we had to have be shielded from basically anyone who could see it, right? So even from the Savannah, it's set down into the site so that it can't be seen if you're at the playground, which I'll show you an image in just a second. It can't be seen from Frost. It can't be seen from the residences. So we felt like this was on the right track. And this was the scheme that we were working on just most recently over the summer. This now is reacting to the Planning Commission and staff comments that we got about relocating the dog park and moving the trail connection that goes down to the gazebo and then over to the amenity space closer to the building. Again, this was a comment from a CDRB member to try to get pavement away and have more of a landscape buffer that was just landscaping and stormwater treatment, which is essentially what you're seeing right now. And then a final one, which was the result of just the natural evolution of the architectural design, if you go forward one more, Michael, to where we are today. So the building just got a little smaller. We dropped about 8,000 gross square feet from the building and just tightened up every space that we felt like could afford to be tightened up. This was not an effort to placate the neighborhood. We knew that this wasn't going to cut it. This was an effort to try to make this building fit as best as it possibly could and not have any excess space. Every square foot of this building now has a specific use, and we were able to take 8,000 feet out of it to try to land it even more perfectly. And then the next slide, Michael, just shows the outline of what the previous site plan was. So you can see the reduction in space on the north side of the site, right where the drive aisle enters the parking garage, and then a small amount on the south side of the site as the amenity space transitions. If you keep going, this is the site landscape plan, which I know many of you have seen, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions on it. And this is a site section that we shared with the Planning Commission to help illustrate the difference between our proposed project and the townhome concept that was contemplated in the 2007 plan, and I know many folks tonight have brought up too. So we drew in to scale where those townhomes would be. So you kind of saw this when we have the side-by-side on the plan. Now you can see it in section. So if you go to the next slide, Michael. This represents essentially that 50-foot setback from the property line and the two-scale massing of a 3-story townhome, which in townhome development is the common mode of construction. And what we wanted to illustrate was not which do you like better, because we've already said very clearly that we are not in a position to develop the townhome project, and be interesting to learn from someone who thinks that it's possible, but that's also, I feel, a distraction and not what I'd like to focus on tonight. This was more about how the building is oriented to its surroundings. And if you had 50 or 60 of these roofs all spread out across the site, you're not enhancing the transition from the residences on Phelan Place or any of the adjacent streets to this undeveloped parcel. We just want it to be very clear that it sounds really nice to have 50 or 60 townhomes instead of a 150-unit single building. This is actually how it would look, and this is actually where they would be positioned. We feel like objectively, this is not an improvement in transition from heights, in transitions from setbacks, in transition from views, sunlight, et cetera. We did a handful of view studies, helping what we hoped the neighborhood understand how their current experience on Phelan Place relates to how it could be if this building was built. And we focused on the houses that we felt like were most impacted by this. So this is the view today, standing from Phelan Place looking east toward our project site. I'm sure people recognize the homes. There's the building in the background. And we have a few more of these. If you go to the next one, Michael. Yep, here's another view. This is yep, and there's the building in the background. So if you're familiar with the site's topography, right at this point is where the tree coverage starts as you run south on Phelan Place. So there are 4 homes that do not have the dense tree coverage, which you can see on the right side of the screen. Those are the homes that are clearly impacted by the existence of this building. Yep. So as you run further south, the home in the foreground is at the start of where that tree coverage starts. So you can still see it like looking in at this corner. And then as you run further south, this is a little bit further south on Phelan Place. So this is what you see today. And then this is what you would see with the building. There's absolutely no visual impact from anyone who's in this part of Phelan Place and running south as well. So we turn the corner and go east now, looking north at the site. So this is the site today, and then Michael just advanced. This is the site with the building outlined in. So it's there. It's clearly there. We don't purport to say that there's no visual impact for anyone for any reason. It's clearly there. You can see it. But hopefully these images illustrate the magnitude of what the change is, and we feel like is appropriately situated on the site relative to its surroundings. And then my favorite one, if you go one more slide, Michael, is the Savannah. So I took this picture. I took this picture 2.5 weeks ago on a weekend afternoon with my 2 daughters playing at the playground, right? I knew all about it, just hadn't had a chance to take them over there. This is obviously before the snow fell. And what I was struck by is, A, the Savannah is beautiful. Knew that, but you experience it in a different way when you're walking around. But B, how when you're standing up high on the Savannah, and this is right next to where the playground is, looking toward the city-owned parcel, how clearly isolated it is. It was clearly left out of the Savannah's development so that it could be safe for something to come. And this was a learning for us because we heard many, many comments from the neighborhood that you're taking away this like free-flowing space, and I treated that very seriously, and that was a concern of ours. We didn't want to take away any free-flowing space. We didn't want to feel like our building was just plopped into something that was open all around it. But you can see, looking at the site, the area is outlined in trees, and then it's further outlined in a barbed wire fence. So I know there's a couple comments made about freely traversing through this. I hope people aren't doing that because it's not safe, and access to this area is controlled. Certainly it's controlled for where the boats are stored. And then one more slide, Michael. This is what it looks like with our building and the new landscaping that we have planned in our concept. So we endeavored to create connections between our project and the 20-plus acre Savannah through its trail system, through new residents living in this building who can enjoy the Savannah and help care for it for the next 20 years, and ultimately understand that, as was written in half a dozen places throughout that planning document, that plan was meant to be flexible. It says in the preamble, As a guide, the plan should be considered a flexible concept plan which can be modified based on the changing market forces and redevelopment variables. I feel like 15 years is a lot of time to contemplate changing market forces and redevelopment variables. And up until we came into the picture, there hadn't been another proposal on the project. As far as I know, it was removed from the city's available listings because we were actively under contract to buy it. So it would be a challenge with the contract if the city was simultaneously trying to sell it to other people while we were under contract to buy it. So Michael and others can talk more about the city's efforts in marketing it before we came into the picture, but we felt like all we've ever had is honest intentions. And I kind of cringed a little bit when I heard a lot of the accusations about dishonest intentions. We've been straightforward and transparent about what we've been trying to do. Hopefully you can see the pains we've taken to try to get this building to meet all of the competing priorities. It's not perfect. We knew it was not going to satisfy everybody, but we think we did a pretty good job with the limitations on the site, and we're really excited to help bring it to life.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions, Council?
What kind of people
No, excuse me. You can't ask.
No, I am gonna say something.
No, you can't, ma'am. You're not allowed to ask questions during the council meeting. We had it at the public hearing, but you don't just get to yell from the crowd, so I'm sorry. Okay? You can ask after the meeting. You can come up to one of us, but not during the meeting, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Not, I'm going to ask you one more time, or else you're going to have to be removed.
You're gonna move into those places when you got the
Ma'am, don't do this at the
strip
meeting.
mall, whatever he calls it, with
Okay.
the junk cars and the car wash, and then you got the, over by the.
You're finished.
Trailer homes that are falling apart, that maybe focus on some of that.
Okay, sorry. I apologize for that. Any questions, council? No? Kathy? Okay. Not tonight. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to, we do not have any unfinished business. Oh, that's right. All right. For the last 4 items on here, we're going to, I motion tabling the items H1A through H1E until December 12th. Yeah, all of them. Oh, I meant all of them. 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and 1E.
So moved. Can I just say that?
Or a second? I'm motion.
Oh, you made the motion.
Yeah, I made
Sorry
the
about
motion.
that.
So you
Okay,
second?
second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
This.
I can't hear. Wait.
1B through.
That's what she said. B through E.
Okay, B through E, not A. Okay, and there's a second on that motion? Okay, and any other questions on it, staff? Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay, so we will table that till the December 12th meeting. Okay, next we have no unfinished business. We have new business, which is resolution canvassing the municipal results of the November 8th, 2022 general election. Ms. Sint?
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. So tonight we're here to canvass the municipal results of the November 8th general election. And first, I'd like to take this time to just give a thanks to all of the precise and gracious work that was done by everyone involved with the election. I'd like to acknowledge staff from multiple departments. I think we had 6 different divisions that had 16 people from staff here working. We had about 150 election judges who we trained and who worked all election day. And then, of course, we have Ramsey County, who supports and works with us before and during the election. Again, this year proved to be interesting. Every election has its own little flavor, and This one did not disappoint. So, and everyone rose to the task. I was out at some of the precincts during the day, and I was just amazed at how calm and at how well trained and just able to explain the election process to people who had questions. I cannot say too much about our head judges and all the other judges that have been there and how they take their work so thoughtfully and are so good with the people. So we're very glad that we have them with us here at Maplewood. And so we feel very confident that the integrity of the election was preserved here. And again, we would like to thank council for letting us invade the council chambers. We did do that during the last 2.5 weeks for absentee voting. We took over and just gave space to people coming in to do the AB voting, and we were, again, thanked profusely that we gave this as an option for people to come and be able to cast their vote here. So with that, I did receive the abstract of votes this afternoon from Ramsey County. The total number of Maplewood voters was just under 16,000. And the results that we had for the four-year mayor election, we had Mary Lee Abrams with 7,529 votes, and Diana Longery was 6,210. And the results for the four-year council member, we had Bill Knutson with 5,339, John Barry Lee with 7,700 votes, Patricia Trish Timmons with 3,214 votes, and Kathleen A. Kathy Juneman with 5,379 votes. So with that, we have prevailing candidates of Mary Lee Abrams as mayor and Chunbury Lee and Kathleen Juneman as council members. So tonight what I need is a motion to approve the resolution canvassing the municipal results of the November 8, 2022 general election. And upon that approval, I will ask to get all of your signatures before you leave here tonight on the abstract, and then I will certify that to the county auditor.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, staff, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I don't know if I'll get it right. Motion to pass the resolution of the canvassing results of the general election on November 8th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion passes. Next, we have, Kathy.
Thank you. I just wanted to second what Andrea said because I heard from some of my neighbors that there were a couple of issues that came up at precincts 1 and 2, and they were handled beautifully. They just said there weren't any, there was no yelling, there was no tearing of hair, there was no, people felt really heard and things explained well. So I think that's really good that people go away from it feeling that way.
Yeah.
So I second what you said from a neighborhood
And I'll
standpoint.
comment on that too. When I went, it was just, it seemed like it wasn't like a party, but it was really great seeing everyone just happy there, and people knew who you were. They knew each other. It was great. It was kind of like a neighborhood, and it was very nice. Yes. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Martin, I believe you're next.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, for your next item under new business, we have an applicant, Jesse Jacobson of Advanced Vehicle Solutions, who is seeking council approval for a conditional use permit and a setback variance. This is looking at 47 Century Avenue North. Mr. Jacobson is present tonight, and he's seeking these approvals to operate an auto maintenance garage within this site. The building would stay, and the site largely unchanged from at least a massing of what you see today. Future land use guides this property as a mixed-use community. It zones the property as business commercial. The comp plan then has guided the property for auto maintenance uses, and the zoning code then requires a conditional use permit to carry that use out. So the proposal does meet the intent of the comprehensive plan and zoning code requirements. Just a quick background, in 1979, the city approved plans for this existing building to be constructed for an auto parts store Later on, an auto maintenance garage business was added to the west side of the building. This predates the CUP requirements, but the building has been vacant now for several years, so it has lost its non-conforming status, thus requiring the conditional use permit variance that's before you tonight. The applicant intends to use this site to perform mechanical repairs, but not in a traditional auto repair shop way. He's looking to have autos in place for calibrations and diagnostics on vehicles that are already undergoing auto body repairs at his other 6 Hepner's auto body and glass locations in the East Metro. And the applicant, as I mentioned, would keep the site and exterior of the building largely the same, except for adding a chain link fence to the south and vehicle access gates to the north and south of the building. So again, auto maintenance garages require that conditional use permit in the zoning district, but the zoning district also requires maintenance garages to be set back 350 feet from residential property. This site is immediately west of single-family homes that are to the west, so thus requiring the variance. Staff surveyed the surrounding 75 properties and sent them a public hearing notice. We did not see any responses. This is actually reviewed by the Planning Commission back in July at their meeting, and they recommended approval of that. And so staff is also recommending approval of this project. Can stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions? Kathy?
It's actually not a question, just a sort of a comment, is that when you first read this, you think, oh my goodness, a 350-foot variance, that'd be a lot. But when you see the history of the building, and there's been no complaints about what goes on there, and then you see that they're not going to actually do any painting or body work, so it's actually going to be less invasive than it might be. So I understand, but at first you think 350, whoa. But then you realize he doesn't need it.
Yeah, I was at design review for this, and this particular property is well screened from the residents, and they've done a nice job in the past, and this gentleman, ultimately agrees to keep it as it is.
Do we have the applicant here? Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Jesse Jacobson with Advanced Vehicle Solutions. Summarized it very well in the beginning. We will be doing, this will be the first facility of its kind in the East Metro, so we're excited to bring it to Maplewood here. Many new vehicles have a lot of sensors, cameras, automatic emergency braking will be required on all vehicles starting in 2023. So the need for this service is happening now and will only grow in the future to keep our vehicles operating safely, keep the occupants safe, and it's just a growing and emerging business that we're, again, happy to bring to Maplewood. And this site, again, as you mentioned, we're not a traditional auto repair mechanical. We're not doing tires on and off all day or oil changes or anything like that. It's purely for mechanical work related to collisions and the recalibration of vehicle sensors. So,
yeah, I really appreciate sending out letters to the neighbors. That definitely is something we always do with businesses, but that you are working well with the neighbors. You're welcome to Maplewood, with the business, and it's great that you are working with them, because that's what's really important when you have a business behind a residential area, and just keep that relationship going. That's important.
The architect that did the site plan actually lives in the neighborhood behind it, coincidentally, and he's very excited because that building's been vacant for 2 years. So he's the neighbors, there's a lot of illegal dumping in the back, and so he's excited for somebody to occupy that building. So,
any questions, council? No. Okay, what's your?
I move conditional use permit and setback variance resolution for Advanced Vehicle Solutions Incorporated, 47 Century Avenue North.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No. Okay, with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Welcome to Maplewood. Okay, next on new business, a resolution approving First Amendment to the purchase agreement.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, on April 25th, 2022, the City Council approved a purchase agreement with Beacon Acquisition for the purchase of the properties at 1375 Frost Avenue and 1900 Clarence Street. What's before you tonight is an extension of the due diligence period. The developer is looking for an extended period to complete some additional Alta survey work and a Phase 2 environmental study after the building has been removed from the site. To do that, we need to extend that due diligence period, and it's proposed in the agreement for an extension to May 1st, 2023. So staff is recommending approval of that first amendment to the purchase agreement and can stand for any questions.
Sure. I have a question. Is that something, I don't know if it's Mr. Beatty we ask, is that something that's common?
Madam Mayor and Council, you know, projects take a long time, and I think this is simply a reflection, especially some of the more complicated projects. I think this is simply a reflection of that. The next piece you're going to see, if you recall, this project also involves some land exchanges, which involves 3 parties. There is an exchange agreement which has been drafted and is circulated and is being considered. So that will come back. But I say that only to illustrate the point I'm making. Things are complicated, they take some time. So the answer is yes, it's pretty common to need to extend things.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor. I was impressed with the list of accomplishments or tasks that they've already, so they told us how they're moving ahead and what they're taking care of, so you know they're paying attention to details, so they need the extension for a good reason.
With that, what does council?
I move the resolution approving the First Amendment to the purchase agreement for 1375 Frost Avenue East and 1900 Clarence Avenue North.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? With that, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, the next one, resolution approving First Amendment to the purchase agreement, 1160 Frost Avenue East.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Similar action as that you just had taken on the last item. This is looking at the city-owned property at 1160 Frost, also the property that was discussed earlier tonight. Why the First Amendment is coming before you for a requested extension to both the inspection period and the closing date is largely due to the extended review time that occurred through our commissions. And so we're looking to extend that review time to better match the land use approval process. Actually, because of the tabling action tonight that moves us the land use items into mid-December, we would request from a staff level to actually extend both those dates an additional month that is not reflected in your staff report, again, to account for the extra land use review that is occurring. So this would need to be incorporated, if it's the council's will, into the motion tonight that the inspection period would now be extended to January 1st, 2023, and then to the closing date would be extended to March 1st, 2023. So with that, I'm sorry, the staff is recommending approval of those changes that can answer any questions from the council.
Okay. Council, is there any questions? Mr. Martin? Okay. All right.
I move the resolution approving First Amendment to the purchase agreement 1160 Frost Avenue East.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are those dates, those were the dates?
Do I need to
that-
put those into the? All right.
Yeah, we should state the dates, Mayor and
Sorry.
Council.
I move the resolution approving First Amendment to the purchase agreement, extending the inspection period to January 1st, 2023, and the closing date on the purchase and sale of the property to March 1st, 2023.
Now second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. With that, are there any further questions, council? Okay, with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay. And with that, we have 0 award of bids tonight, so we are adjourning.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.